All right, what up, what up? Let's talk about some inequalities. Now, to be successful with inequalities, you really only got to remember one thing, and that's the gator always eats the bigger number. The gator always eats the bigger number. Now, what do we mean by gator? Well, what we mean by gator is that this is our inequality sign, and the gator looks like this. So the inequality sign is the mouth of the gator. And this gator is always going to eat the bigger number. Right, so its mouth should always be opening towards the big number. And on the tail side, we have the smaller number. And that's really all we need to know. Let's take a look at how this works. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at how these inequalities work. So we have an example where we're going to be comparing numbers, and that's really all that we're doing when we talk about inequalities. So let's compare the numbers 10 and 9. We're going to ask ourselves which one is bigger. We know that 10 is bigger than 9. 10 is bigger than 9. So when we draw our inequality, we are going to draw the gator opening up its mouth towards the bigger number, which is 10. So we have our gator with its feet and its eye. All right, example 1 done. Let's take a look at another example. Let's compare the numbers 0 and 1. And again, we ask ourselves, which number is bigger? And we know that 1 is bigger than 0. So if 1 is bigger than 0, then our alligator is going to open up its mouth to eat the bigger number. And we get an inequality that looks like this, with the gator and its feet and its eye. And that's all, that's all there really is to it. So, voila, we know how to use our inequalities. And now for your favorite part, we have some math words. We have just a little bit of vocab, and really there's only 2 vocab words, so it's not going to be too terrible. The first vocab word we've been using is bigger, like 10 is bigger than 9. And instead of bigger, we're going to say greater than. Greater than. So we would say 10 is greater than 9. And our second word that we've been using is smaller. Instead of the word smaller, we're going to say less than. Less than. We would say that, let's see here, 0 is less than 1. And that's really all there is to it. So, hopefully it wasn't too terrible, and hopefully we survived. So far we know a few things about our inequalities. The first thing we know is that the gator is always going to open its mouth towards the bigger number, and on the tail end we're going to have the smaller number. We know that the vocab word for bigger is greater than, and the vocab word for smaller is less than. The next skill set that we're going to need to work on is communicating what we're seeing when we're looking at an inequality. So let's take a look at the example of comparing 1 and 0. So we know that 1 is bigger than 0, so the alligator should open its mouth towards the 1. Now, when we're reading this inequality, if we're moving from the big number to the small number, then we're going to say 1 is greater than 0. But we could also look at this another way. Instead of reading from the big to small, we could read from the small number to the big number. So we read from the small number to the big number. And we'll read 0 is less than 1. They mean the exact same thing. It just depends on how you're reading it, and you could look at it either way. So it does get just a little bit confusing, but the key thing is going to be to practice, 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 practice. And if we remember our diagram and we're able to draw it out, we're going to have a really easy time remembering how to communicate these things. So, yeah, that's what we got. Well, like I said just a moment ago, we're going to need to practice to be able to do this fluently and really just get a hold of it. So the first thing that we should do is we should definitely draw out our picture. So whether you're taking a test or you're taking a quiz, draw your picture at the top of your page, so that way you're not trying to hold on to it in your memory and you free up some space to actually work on the problems. So we've drawn our picture, and now our goal is to compare 5 and 7. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw our inequality symbol. So our inequality symbol is going to say that 5 is less than 7. So the alligator should open towards the 7. And now we have two different ways to read this. If we go from the 5 to the 7, we say 5 is less than 7. Or if we go from the 7 to the 5, we say 7 is greater than 5. Example 1 done. Well, let's keep cooking. And let's take a look at two different numbers. So we'll look at the numbers 11. I want that in white. 11 and 4. So take a moment, draw your inequality, and then write out the two different ways that you can say what the inequality is telling you. And I assume that you've paused, you've taken your moment, you've done those things, and now let's go through it. So we have 11 and 4. We know that 11 is bigger than 4, so the alligator is going to open up to eat the 11. If we read from the 11 to the 4, going this way, then we say 11 is bigger, 11 is greater than. 11 is greater than 4. And if we read from the 4 to the 11, we have 4 is less than 11. Now you can make your own practice problems. You can keep working on these. You can draw your alligator and your vocab words lots and lots of times. Remember, the key to success in anything is going to be your repetition and your practice. So, have at it.